Real Talk, Episode 2.
Real talk.
I'm going crazy. Welcome everyone to Episode 2 of Real Talk. Still working from home, still in isolation, so you'll get to hear Mitch Matheson's story via Zoom, but we're really keen for you to meet Mitch as he is Ballarat born and bred, so his opinion of studying rural is a little different, and we're really excited to show you what he's got to say, so tune in. Alrighty. So first, I want to welcome you to Real Talk, and this is our second episode. So you're our second victim for our series, but we're really excited to have you feature because you are from Ballarat. So it'll be interesting to see your opinion on some of the questions that I have and your view. So first up, if you could give me your name, what you are studying, and at what university.
So my name's Mitch Matheson. I'm a fourth year occupational therapy student studying in Melbourne. I do live in Ballarat, but yeah.
And where are you currently on placement and for how long?
So I just finished my 7-week placement at Uniting Care in Ballarat. So I was working in adult mental health. So working in a homelessness team, which was really interesting.
You were born and bred in Ballarat, and then you moved to study in Melbourne, but you did have placements in Ballarat and potentially future work. So why do you think that, other than family and convenience, there are probably two main factors, but why do you think that you came back to place and potentially work in a rural setting?
I sort of found that I have had placements both in the metro setting and the rural setting. And I found that there is a slight sort of difference in the culture in some of the workplaces that I've been at. I sort of enjoy the slightly more relaxed, sort of friendly nature that the community, like more rural setting, gives you. I think you sort of develop sort of some deeper relationships with people. And just from my experiences anyway, I think, you build those interpersonal relationships really well, just because it's not as a fast-paced environment.
You're doing your 7-week, or you've finished your 7-week placement now, and you said you've done some in Metro, but you actually had a placement with us as well a couple years ago, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So it was 2 years ago now. I did an aged care placement with Going Rural as well. So I think I would have been one of the first students to be involved twice. And yeah, both different experiences, but I think being a little bit older and being in my final year, I sort of took a lot more out of this sort of last placement.
And how has it been working with the Going Rural Health team overall? Do you feel as though you were supported throughout your placement?
Yeah, of course. I built some really special relationships with Charmaine, my supervisor, as well as Mari from Going Rural as well. But yeah, all lovely people and really supportive. So they've really helped me out. Brutally
honest, were your placements what you expected them to be, particularly the most recent one?
Given COVID, it's been a little bit tricky, but I think a lot of it came down to sort of mindset and being able to just make the most of all the time that you have. And I think with that decreased sort of client contact, you get to spend more time with your supervisor. So I almost found that more beneficial to build those really close sort of professional relationships.
Do you think there was something that you gained in your rural placement that you probably wouldn't have the opportunity to do elsewhere?
I think so. I think going along that as well, I think that in these sort of more rural settings, the supervisors and the organisations give you a little bit more trust, and they sort of treat you more like an employee more than a student. So you get that responsibility to actually trial your skills in a real life setting. And it's, that role between student versus employee is probably a little bit more closer. So yeah, you get to use your initiative a little bit more and sort of see what the real world's like.
And you've kind of got your career set up towards the end of the year, don't you, with the job in place? So can you tell us a bit about that?
So if all goes to plan, I've got a job lined up in a private practice here in Ballarat. I'm thinking it's going to be more in paediatrics, so kids. But yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity for me just to, as a new grad, to try and find a job and see what area I want to go into moving forward. But yeah, I've been really lucky to tee that up. What
I like to do is it's called peak and pit. So the peak of your experience and the pit, so the peak would be the best part and the pit would be the worst part. So from your most recent placement, what do you think the peak of your experience was?
This is probably a little bit of a funny one, but it was probably getting to meet all my sort of staff and all my supervisors in person. Right at the end, we all went for dinner on the final day of my placement. So getting to meet them in person and actually share stories, not over Zoom, which was really beneficial, and build that real life sort of relationship. That was probably the peak. And the most challenging was probably, there was a stage sort of halfway through my placement where we put the placement on pause for a few weeks just because of the COVID situation escalated a little bit. So a little bit of that uncertainty sort of caused a little bit of stress at the time, but it's all worked out for the best in the end.
Now we're on to our questions for where you're studying rurally, but it's hard for you because you're from Ballarat. So rather than quiz you on certain things, I thought we would do kind of like a one-word answer. So a one-word answer to describe certain topics that I'm going to ask you about. But if you had one word to describe the architecture and art of Ballarat, what do you think that would be?
Historic.
The people?
Relaxed.
The nightlife or music scene?
Evolving.
The dining experience, so the food and drink of Ballarat?
Evolving as well, I think.
And I don't know if you have much experience with this, but the wildlife and outdoor experiences. Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, that's okay. No, there's lots to do.
And finishing, I like to ask you, and I know I've asked you this before, but I like to ask your advice for future students who are considering to place rural.
I think the main thing that I sort of thought about with that question was that if you do get the opportunity to have a rural placement, you're going to be building a skill set that will actually set you apart from a lot of other applicants when you're applying for jobs. I think it can be quite challenging because in some settings you're not sort of directly getting as much face-to-face supervision as you might, or that sort of shadowing supervision that you might get in some other settings. So again, it sort of leans towards having to take initiative and sort of take your own responsibility a little bit. And I think that sort of prepares you better for the real life. Thank you.
Thanks, Mitch. Bye.
Bye.